All right, Hafaday, and good morning. This virtual public hearing conducted by the Committee on Economic Development, Agriculture, Power, and Energy Utilities and the Arts is called to order. It is 9:02 a.m. Notice of the hearing was disseminated to all local media outlets on March 24th of 2021, with the second notice provided on March 29th of 2021. Notice of the hearing was also made known on the Guam Legislature's website. This morning, the committee will hear testimony on Bill number 63-36 LS, an act to amend subsection 68101 of Chapter 68, Title 5, Guam Code Annotated, relative to requiring farmers to be certified as bona fide farmers to sell locally grown produce or aquaculture products and to suspend or revoke business licenses from companies found in violation, a bill that I introduced and was co-sponsored by Vice Speaker Tina Munoz-Barnes. Upon conclusion of discussing Bill 63, we will take a 5-minute recess before we then hear testimony on Bill number 48-36 COR, an act to amend subsection 58110D of Chapter 58, Title 12, Guam Code Annotated, relative to expansion of the public investments option for qualifying certificate holders to include municipal programs and projects introduced by Senator V. Anthony Tony Atta. After discussions on Bill 48 conclude, we will recess until 2 o'clock this afternoon to hear and accept testimonies on resolution number 46-36 LS relative to urging the National Marine Fisheries Service to delay the proposed coral critical habitat designation process until such time that the 5-year coral status review and coral recovery plan can be completed, as well as urging the Department of Agriculture to work in coordination with NMFS to identify appropriate coral critical habitats for Guam using the best scientific information available, as introduced by myself. Before we proceed with hearing testimonies, let me begin by providing the panel participants with some general rules of conduct for this virtual public hearing. All participants must abide by the rules of conduct and quality assurance standards, including the chair will invite individuals who have signed up to testify. Individuals testifying shall first be recognized by the purposes. Please ensure that you are unmuted and that you are speaking clearly into your microphone. For group settings where more than one individual is present, please state your name before providing comment. From among the panel of senators, each member will be allowed to pose one question to an individual testifying for one round and be provided another round if necessary. Questions and testimony shall be confined to the substance or nature of the agenda. Personal inference as to the character or motive of any senator or any individual testifying is not permitted. Any violations of this rule of conduct will result in removal from the meeting by the host. I would like to begin by welcoming my colleagues who have joined us this morning from the 36th Guam Legislature, Senator Tony Atta. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Senator Tello Taitagui. Good morning.
Good morning.
And Senator Mary Torres, and Senator Joanne Brown. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, we'll now proceed with the discussions on Bill number 63-36 LS, and I will begin with my opening statements on the measure. So Bill 63-36 LS is the companion bill to Bill number 62-36 LS in approaching the issue of agricultural theft. One moment. Both pieces of legislation work together to address agricultural theft. The first bill, which our legislature passed just last week, makes it crystal clear that agricultural theft is theft of property. It requires thieves to pay farmers the market value of the produce they stole, plus the cost of production, and would allow authorities to confiscate any vehicles or equipment used in the theft of produce. Many people said the first bill wouldn't be enough to prevent theft of produce, so the second bill, or the bill we're discussing today, seeks to prevent stolen produce from being sold by eliminating the market for stolen agricultural product. Our office has been told by numerous farmers that produce is often stolen in order to be sold for cash. This bill mandates that any business who buys local produce must ensure that the farmer who sold them the local produce is registered as a bona fide farmer with the Department of Agriculture. This should help to prevent thieves from selling stolen produce, which in turn would deter them from stealing a product they're unable to sell for cash. Bill 62-36LS proposes that any business found buying produce from anyone that is not a bona fide farmer would be subject to possible suspension or even revocation of their business license. We often hear concerns from farmers that the thieves are stealing crops not for sustenance, but to profit off of someone else's work. All the money thieves make from reselling this product is stolen profits, and there's no evidence of the crime after the point of sale because the product is then consumed. This is why we need to address agricultural theft in multiple ways. Through this bill, we create a barrier to selling stolen agricultural products because the grocery stores or restaurants or other businesses would have to be verifying certification. No certification, no selling the product, which takes away much of the motivation to steal the product in the first place. There are several other benefits to this bill. Having more members in the bona fide registry eases government agencies' ability to provide resources to farmers. We also give more opportunity for farmers to sell their crops to the local government by adding them to the registry. GovGuam agencies like GDOE, GMH, and DOC are already required by Guam law to purchase a certain amount of local produce. However, farmers have told us that this is often not the case. This is why we are working with the Department of Agriculture to build a strong database of farmers so the Department of Agriculture can then work with these GovGuam agencies to ensure that they are buying local produce. A robust list of bona fide farmers can also help Guam to get more grant funding for agricultural programs. Through this bill, we require businesses to check bona fide farmer certifications, enabling the businesses as well as the Department of Agriculture to differentiate between the legitimate farmers and the thieves. The Department of Agriculture, the business community, and the community at large all have a role to play in preventing agricultural theft. The bill helps to clarify those roles, and we believe provides another tool in preventing agricultural theft. I will begin now by calling on the participants who have signed up to testify in order as shown on the sign-in sheet. So I will begin first with Chelsea Munya-Brecht, Director of the Department of Agriculture.
Hafaday, Senator Ridgell, Senator Tina Munya-Barnes, Senator Mary Torres, Senator Joanne Brown, Senator Telo Taitigui, and Senator Tony Ada. Thank you for holding this public hearing today and allowing us to give our comments regarding Bill 63-36. It was quite simple for us, really. The first and initial reason the Department of Agriculture worked with Senator Ridgell on crafting this legislation was because we had bona fide farmers coming to us, members of the co-op even, who asked that we provide some assistance for them with regard to how they were selling their produce. They had contracted customers who would buy their produce only to show up and find that an unregistered farmer had come before them, offered their produce at a fraction of the price that the bona fide farmer was selling their produce for, and so the consumer bought that produce. When we inquired further, the bona fide farmer specified that, to their knowledge, this was a black market farmer, not registered with any agency, who would come and undercut some of their sales. The second reason we worked with Senator's office on this bill is because members of the community had concerns about produce that is sold, and identifying who the farmers were that were selling the produce when they were available, and questioning what pesticides or fertilizers were used and if they were using it properly. Short of having a laboratory locally that can test for pesticide residue on produce. This is one small first step that we can do or that we can take to help with this process, is knowing our farmers, having bona fide certificates for our farmers, and this comes at no cost to the farmer to have a bona fide certificate. The third reason we worked with the senator on this bill is to protect legitimate farmers in a market where they are competing with farmers who may illegally be farming on Chamorro Land Trust land. Through conversations and as part of investigations conducted, the agency has found that there are some Chamorro Land Trust lessees holding leases to agricultural land, but then who are not the farmers farming the land, and they are not in a partnership with the person who is farming the land, but rather illegally subleasing that land. We've been working with Chamorro Land Trust on identifying these farmers and lessees, and this is part of the process, being able to identify and legitimately register those who are agriculturally farming within the parameters of their requirements. What we are taking to do at the agency is also we will be working with the senator to create a subcategory of the bona fide certification, so that as written now, a bona fide certification is required for those who are commercially selling agricultural products for a profit. We would like to work with the senator to add a subcategory for that for subsistence farmers. This would encompass backyard farmers, urban farmers, peri-urban farmers, new and beginning farmers who are not yet commercially engaged. And the requirements would be the same, with the exception of reporting any commercial profits. It is our belief that this will not push away backyard or small farmers. The bona fide certification already includes any farmer of any size who will engage commercially. There are no size requirements for the bona fide certification. The bona fide requirements, or the requirements for the bona fide certification, are that the applicant must be a U.S. citizen, a permanent resident alien, or who has been a resident of Guam for the immediately preceding 5 years, or a corporation or partnership licensed to do business in Guam. The applicant must be 18 years old. The applicant must submit a valid authorization letter from Chamorro Land Trust Commission, or applicant's proof of ownership title deed, or a notarized letter stating a landowner's agreement with applicant to farm on the property. The area must be cleared and properly managed prior to the farm inspection and on a continuing basis. The applicant must be willing to comply with Department of Agriculture instruction or recommendations relative to improving his or her farming. The applicant must agree to report to the Department of Agriculture within 6 months and every 6 months thereafter. This is called the farm report. And the applicant must keep financial records of farmland production and marketing for information or statistical purposes of the Guam Department of Agriculture. Those are the only requirements required to become a bona fide farmer. At this time, I would also like to ask Mr. John Borja if he would like to provide any additional information on behalf of the agency, if that's all right with you, Senator Ridgell.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, John Borja is the next person on the list in the sign-in sheet anyway, so we can go ahead and go to Mr. John Borja, Chief of the Agricultural Development Services of the Department of Agriculture. Mr. Borja.
Yes, thank you, Senator. Good morning, Senator, and thank you for having me at this time to give me the opportunity to a little bit further express my concerns and needs for a certified bona fide farmer registry. And good morning also, fellow senators. For the record, my name is John C. Borja. I'm the Chief of the Agricultural Development Services Agency. And through the years that I've worked with the farming community, I find it very hard to capture the farmers that are out there that are actually producing and selling to local produce to the markets. I'm more concerned about the accountability of who these farmers are, how much they're producing, so we can gauge as to how our growth of the industry is. Without that industry registry or the registry of bona fide farmers, we cannot account for who is farming, who's using lands, what is being produced, what has been applied to the produce, and whether or not it's safe enough for the consumption of the local population. We are very, very worried about our food security, and that's the main concern I have. Plus also accountability for our subsistence farmers to be able to grow their foods and stuff without having to be impacted by other regulations that would pretty much restrict them into producing subsistence farming operations. But we recognize them as well because this is a whole farming community that we would like to achieve a lot of our potential to be diversified for one thing, but to move forward with the industry. And with a registry of bona fide farmers, as prior to the bill 62-63, it complements that because that is a need. We need to recognize, account, and to also safeguard what is happening in the farming community as it is right now. In respect to that, I'm in full support of this bill, and I will also dedicate my staff, my resources to ensure that we have 100% accountability of what we have in regards to the farming community. Thank you again, Senator, and it's my pleasure to be here again in support of the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Borja. Chelsea, does that complete your testimony for your agency?
Senator, I would also like to add that I understand that in prior years, our agricultural development services has been challenged with having the personnel to conduct inspections or to conduct outreach in the farming community. However, under this current administration, for the first time in 21 years, we have been able to add personnel to the ADS section. We have recently hired 3 professional level staffers, meaning that they are above the technician level in the jobs that they do. And we are working on picking up an additional 3 more staff. So this section, like I said, for the first time in 21 years, since 1990, or 20 years since 1991, is now being adequately prepared and sufficiently prepared to perform the services that we provide to our community, and to do so at a much better capacity. Thank you, Senator.
Okay, thank you, Chelsea. Next on the sign-in sheet is Mr. Roland Santos from Farm to Table Guam. Roland, please make sure your microphone is on and your video as well.
All right, thank you all. Good morning, everyone. My name is Roland Santos. I am a big advocate for local farms and locally grown food. I'm here today to really show my full support to this bill. I do feel that if a farmer is to sell their food to a business, they should be registered and bona fide through the Department of Agriculture in order to provide some type of accountability for where our food actually comes from. Not only will it help deter a lot of the theft that's actually been happening lately, it'll also ensure that our food that our community is eating will be grown using best practices and really safe for consumption. Not only does it provide for accountability, but it also opens up financial assistance to a lot of our farmers. This can actually open up several options, whether it be USDA loans or even grant opportunities to expand their operation, grow more food for our island. Honestly, I really feel that this bill would be great for the agriculture industry, ensuring the safety for our community, for our farmers, and for our economy. That's really all I have. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Roland, for your testimony. Next on the sign-in sheet is Michelle Crisostomo, co-founder and president of Guam Sustainable Culture.
Profiting. Good morning, everyone. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to provide comments on Bill number 6336. Like Senator Ridgell said, I'm Michelle Crisostomo, and I'm the president and co-founder for Guam Sustainable Culture. GSC is a nonprofit organization dedicated to the furtherance of food security and sustainability, promoting all forms and levels of both agriculture and aquaculture. And we would like to commend both the main author and co-sponsor of the legislation, Senator Ridgell and Vice Speaker Munoz, for proposing the bill and their steadfast support of our island's farming community. So in short, we are in favor of the legislation, which seeks to protect and promote farming. We believe that there is a lot of room for both the commercial and backyard farmer to participate and offset some of the produce imported to our island. We believe that Bill 6336 serves to advance promoting and protecting the farmers and consumers. So registering with the Department of Agriculture as a farmer is a beginning step for farmers towards qualifying for farm loans, disaster assistance, grants, crop insurance, and other incentives. Also, registering our farmers helps to provide a census with accurate data on the number of farmers, which can translate into more resources to support farms on Guam. It will also help to ensure that farmers are aware of and compliant in the use of approved pesticides, which protects consumers and our environment. So it is for those reasons that we're happy to lend our support for passage by the Guam legislature. But we would also like to point out concerns for both the author and co-sponsor of the bill, which we believe warrants some further consideration, but in no way should prevent the passage of the bill, because any proposals which intend to help our farmers are better than none at all. So in addition to 63-36 protecting farmers, their operations, and their yield, we hope the legislation does capture the existing and emerging backyard farmers who currently may not meet the size requirements required by the Department of Agriculture to become bona fide, but they may still want to sell their surplus harvest to eating establishments. As an example, during COVID-19, GSE worked with many backyard and subsistence farmers who had a surplus they needed to sell. Their plot sizes may not have met the requirements, or they weren't bona fide farmers, but they relied on selling their extra produce to make extra income during these uncertain times. And we were able to, in turn, donate that produce to families who were in need. So Bill 6336 may not capture these farmers and therefore not extend any protections or give them further incentive to grow their operations. Again, however, GSE is appreciative of the efforts of Senator Ridgell and Vice Speaker Munya Barnes, and we are happy to work with you to improve the legislation and work towards its passage. Sejus Maasi.
Thank you, Michelle, for your testimony. And just for the record, we absolutely want to be sure that we allow for the smaller farmers on smaller lots, the gardeners, et cetera, and even what they refer to often in the States, it's called urban farming. I think we could refer to that here too in certain urban areas. We absolutely want to allow for that to happen. So we'll ensure that that's allowable. And in fact, I do have some piece of legislation that I've been with Chelsea to address that specifically to ensure that we allow for urban farming, even urban aquaculture. So we can make sure that this current bill doesn't preclude them from signing up as bona fide farmers, but I also have some other legislation we're working on that we hope that will encourage those type of farmers. So thank you, Michelle, for your testimony. Next is Roland Kitagwa, Extension Agent 3 from the Cooperative Extension and Outreach Program of the University of Guam.
Thank you, Senator Ridgell. Would it be possible for me to defer my slot and put Jesse Bamba before me, only because of some of the coordinated testimony that we have? And so I would recommend that Jesse Bamba, then Bob Barber, and then myself. Thank you.
No problem. No problem. Jesse Bamba, MS Extension Associate 3, Cooperative Extension and Outreach of the University of Guam.
Thank you, Senator. I'd actually like to go after Bob. If Bob wants to go before me, we kind of all have the same points that we want to accomplish before your committee. But I'll defer to Bob, then me.
Sure, we can do that. So we will go with Dr. Barber first, then Jesse Bamba, then Roland Kitagwa, all of which are with the University of Guam. So Dr. Barber.
Greetings. First, I would like to apologize. Should my internet go bad and break up, I'll cut off the video if I have to. Just let me know if I break up. I want to commend you on the intent. I want to commend you on the first bill. I totally support the first bill. Unfortunately, good intent should pave the pathway to a lot of undesirable locations. And I'm afraid I see more undesirable coming out of this bill as currently written. And while the intent is excellent and I would like to work, and I for all of us at UOG and the Farmers Co-op and the Soil and Water District members to assist, because I think it needs a little bit broader input so that we can make you aware. There are some past issues on this. One, I think in terms of guiding Department of Ag, and I should note, I want to cast no shade on the current administration or the current Department of Ag, which is growing and which we see, but we do have to look at things within a historical context as well. One of the first things that you might ask is, why do we need legislation to mandate that farmers register if it's such a good thing? Farmers should want to be registered for bona fide farmers. So I believe we should totally focus on the carrot rather than the stick. This legislation very heavily focuses, as it is now, on the stick. The bona fide, I've promoted it all along. I was also delighted to hear changes, because the last time they shared the description of the bona fide farmer, it did have production minimums. For example, just to give you one of the many different ways you could go, you had to have at least 50 fruit trees, 25 of one kind, 25 another, or a certain size aquaculture tank. If that's removed, that's good news. But and we've been discussing both with Department of Ag and our partners for quite a while, looking at defining multiple levels of farmers, whether we follow USDA of subsistence, small farm, large farm, or whether we go with a subsistence and then a market gardener and then a commercial farmer. These are various things we can look at and should be discussed. But I do believe that there's current legislation that is no longer relevant to the current situation. I refer specifically to the Public Law 2264, where this definition of bona fide farmer comes in. There's some major flaws just in with that. I'll just point one out to you. The intent in some cases is to identify people who are U.S. citizens or who have been on Guam for a set amount of time. And unfortunately, this now blocks out the markets. What if you had a Japanese who wants to come here as an individual and has a house and wants to farm and engage in commercial, but if they're not here 5 years, this law would prevent it. Now they can operate and not be bona fide farmers, so it wasn't a problem. But mandating in order to sell, they be bona fide farmers. Now that man or woman can no longer sell at the flea market or anywhere else. Or a Micronesian who comes here and wants to not go on food stamps by selling some of the taro they grow in their half-acre lot in order to be able to buy pork or chicken. And so you block them out also, because they're neither U.S. citizens nor are they been on Guam for 5 years. And yet at the same time, you allow a major Korean corporation to come in and within 1 year, not live in our community and be part of our community, but come in and then possibly bring Korean or Chinese, same, or Filipino. They could all do the same, but they're not individuals. They're a corporation that comes in and will compete very heavily with our local farmers. So in the initial PL 2264, there's some issues that I believe we could address, and we're happy to help you look with that issue. But in terms of the theft, this is a classic where we cut off our nose to spite our face. Theft is a major problem, but registered with Department of Ag, and Jesse will offer an alternative form of legislation out of Hawaii that requires no government agency to become involved. It just sets up a basic contact tracing through the whole thing. But I have to note here, in need assessment after need assessment after need assessment over the past 20 years, the number one issue our farmers say is, I don't have any problem growing the product. My problem is in selling it. The markets don't take. So I am constrained by what I can sell, not by what I can produce. And you'll have any commercial farmer tell you this, and many of them could double their production, but it's the markets. Our markets are dominated by imported wholesalers. It used to be up till about 2001 to 2003 that a major source for these people were able to sell to government agencies, but that changed. And now virtually no farmer sells to a government agency, despite the fact, and no making a bona fide farmer is going to change this situation, because we're dealing now with prime vendors that have contracts going out 2 to 3 years, that even if the farmers in Department of Ag and UOG, and I've watched multiple senators go to hearing after hearing and working group after working group, and if we take the biggest one, DOE, we have not been able to break into it. And Now you've got less than 5 schools that actually have cafeterias, and you have a prime vendor that's making the meals, and again, under a contractual basis. So this registry is not going to address that issue. And so I'd like to speak briefly about Title V, Chapter 68, Procurement of Local Products. The basic flaw with this legislation is it mandated how Department of Ag, and back in the days when it actually worked, they worked in cooperation with UOG in terms of helping and negotiating these prices each year. But back in the pre-2001-2-3 period, the farmers sold directly to it. And this law was written in that age when the agencies were buying directly from farmers. It does not recognize, and the law, and this law doesn't either recognize the fact that no government agency, except with one exception in the past year, is buying directly from farmers. There may be a special initiative. I know Gita has had some success with 1 or 2 to do smoothies or salad, but this, and I believe Department of Ag and Farm to Table have actually, but these are not the tens of thousands of pounds a day of produce that's going into the school menus. This is, it's not happening. It's going through a prime vendor. And so you have to recognize that when you dictate price, the beneficiary of these price and the negotiations and the Department of Ag providing a price list is not the farmer. It's the wholesalers that are maybe buying from the farmers at a fraction of that price. So the price, the law does not guarantee that the price that you think they should be getting because of the law and Department of Ag negotiations, that price isn't making it to the farmers. They're under the thumb of the wholesalers. So given this dominance of the wholesaler market, I fear this law will put we're struggling to break into it. We've been working with the UOG and the co-op have been working with the Micronesian Chefs Association for a decade now with our farm to chef initiative. And it may be this guy has 10 calamansi trees, or this woman has a bunch of mulberry trees, and they're providing this one chef. They're small; they may have no desire. But now, if you're going to force these restaurants to actually verify that it is, and have Department of Ag's registration within there, they'll just say, it's easy. I'll just buy it. I'll do like I did before. I'll buy off island, because why risk my license to do business if I'm not certified? That just has an alternative where it can be a farmer to the person accountability tracing, much like you see in other best management practices of farm tracing. It doesn't need to be this level. There is, and I think we should be focusing. So Chapter 68 needs definite work. And UOG has been studying this issue with the co-op for over a decade. We have a lot to offer. We would hope to be at the table in these discussions. And I need to note, I think at this point in time, it's well worth, it's high time we got an Ag Board of Commissioners there to help Department of Ag, because I think some feedback will come to this. And when I say it, I'm talking of large farmers, small farmers, but also maybe as non-voting members, but at least advisors from some of the key partners of NRCS and FSA and UOG to Department of Ag. I think that could help form better as we go forward, and would serve and be of great use to you senators as you try to do it. Now, I also have to note that the whole issue came to light of the massive amount of farmers who are subleasing to other non-Chamorros. That came out in a study UOG did, which actually Senator Brown was a partner in this, and an employee of UOG in the districts at the time it was done. So she could comment later as y'all have further hearings on it. But it came out and many efforts were tried. And the real issue is that Chamorro Land Trust has to enforce its rules. And this law isn't going to ensure that in and of itself. And I think that's a whole different issue that should be addressed. So as we go forward, I would like to recommend also under 5 GCA, 5008.1, and as a model of how some of the legislation might be better worded, because you have to recognize no one agency has the expertise. The ADS staff, as Chelsea notes, is decimated compared to the staffing pattern and the vehicles they had at their disposal back in 1993 to 1997 when they were aggressive in going out and partnered with UOG, where we had vehicles and staff that partnered with them and went to the 80 to 120 largest commercial farms and monitored their production on a monthly basis. They don't have that. So they're down to a fraction of the staff they had then, and the nursery staff and the dead doe breeding station staff. At the same time, UOG Cooperative Extension and Agriculture Experimentation literally now has 50% of the faculty we had in 1994. And because of budget cuts, the university, Department of Ag has faced cuts, UOG in terms of ag support. This might be something I would recommend as you go forward. But back in those days, 5 GCA 5008.1, policy in favor of native or grown in Guam horticultural products, has some language in it that can maybe help guide this. And it says in section B, DOAG shall, in cooperation, now they use COWS, which would now be CSCENO, Cooperative Extension Outreach of UOG, but in cooperation with UOG, who has a lot of the data and a lot of expertise that can help in this, shall then come up, and they designate a whole list of things that they should do. I think the legislation does need to be more specific if you're going to give something to ag and if UOG is going to help or not in terms of it. But it notes the definition of what grown and grown means and coming up with establish and regularly update a list of growers. And I like this list of growers, which it's optional and it's there and it's available for use. But again, it's putting the carrot forward, not the stick, and listing the plants that qualified under this thing. This is the kind of thing that we have the expertise. We've been working in a long time that can complement what Department of Ag is doing. Plus, we have a lot of institutional memory within our organization. And so I think the legislation might really want to look at some of that. So I've spoken a lot. I just want to note that really this law, I would think it would be great if we could table it or at least postpone the hearing, and go back and bring a larger group in. And let's look at fixing 3 different sets of legislation. The original public law 2264 that set up the bona fide farmer, and possibly some of what Director Moonbrett brought in, have some of that actually in the law that specifies it, or at least have orders of implementation. Chapter 68, procurement of local products. This definitely needs the Farmers Co-op and some of the other coalitions that are working towards developing and promoting local produce, and possibly even some of the target groups for this. And then coming in again and looking at just the overall thing of the relationship of the Soil and Water District and the Farmers Co-op in this. I do believe these should be players in the legislation in going. And then just to close out, I'd say we have to figure out how to make wholesalers on this island want to buy local. We cannot make them more scared of buying local. And we have to figure out that Chamorro Land Trust requires a whole different set of hearings in legislature. And I don't think this bill will have a chilling effect. I would have suggested that when you confiscate the vehicles, they also be given to the farmer, but that's a whole different matter. But I'll stop here. We're willing to write more detailed, if you wish, testimony. I do have to note, today I am speaking as Bob Barber, a professor and extension specialist in ag economics and sustainable agriculture. I only found out of this bill a week ago, and so I haven't had a chance to go and clear my testimony in the UOG. So I do not necessarily represent UOG's opinion, but I am more than happy in the coming week with Jesse Baum and Roland to formulate a position that could be university stance. So I'm speaking from 27 years of experience, primarily working in sustainable ag issues and Guam agriculture markets. And so I share this. So in conclusion, as the bill is written, I can't support, but I would love to work with you on making it.
Hello. Thank you, Dr. Barber. You were kind of cutting in and out there, at least on my end. But so just to, but I think we got the gist of your testimony. But just to be clear, I want to ask a question. So are you opposed to requiring that people be bona fide farmers in order to sell their produce?
Absolutely. I think it's putting a legislative mandate. If the bona fide farmer should be of benefit to farmers. If it's a benefit to the disaster program, the uninsured crop, I mean the FSA's crop insurance program is of benefit. You have something like 30, I don't know the exact numbers, 30 or 40 of our largest commercial farmers that are in it because they see the economic benefit of paying the money in and getting that out. You have people who are in the bona fide farmer, maybe because they see the water rate benefit, maybe because other. But to make a requirement and further make it so that there's penalties if someone buys from someone that is not a bona fide farmer, this will have a chilling effect on Guam agriculture's markets, which are already our farmers' most difficult issue.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Barber. Jesse Bamba.
Buenas, Senator.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Buenas. I second what Bob says about mandating. That's the last thing that I think our farmers want to see is having the government mandate them to register. A better, maybe we could, if Department of Ag can start a list of people who want to sell specifically to government agencies, then they'll sign up. Like Bob said, back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, our farmers were doing probably 30%, 40% of the farm, the produce that was grown and sold on Guam was going to DOE, 30 to 40%. That's a huge amount and that was before they were mandated to register as a bona fide farmer. So maybe asking them and having them volunteer to do that would be a better idea. Bob went over a lot of points that we want to touch in, and we will be getting back to you, Senator, about if you allow us to help you with the bill to make it better. I think collectively as a unit, at least A&R, the Ag and Natural Resources for the Extension and Outreach Service here at the university, we can put our heads together and we can help you with this legislation. The one thing I do want to go over, and the bill touches is ag theft. Now, for years we've had to deal with ag theft. Any farmer can tell you the worst pest is a two-legged pest. That's the worst pest to have. And years ago, I don't know. Years ago, I'd say back in the early 2000s, one of our older farmers, Gabby Guerrero, was arrested for protecting his crop. I don't know if you guys remember this, but he has a farm, or he recently passed away last year. One of our oldest farmers here. He had a farm in Harmon, and he was probably losing. I think he lost a truckload or 2 truckloads of papaya, and that equates to almost $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, depending on the price that you can get. So his wife and him were camping out at his farm, and just so happened the thief came back, and Gabby shot his gun towards the vehicle, and it ricocheted. The bullet hit the person, and the person went to the hospital. And of course, if you have a bullet wound, the doctor's going to ask you, how the heck did you get shot? And he said that he got shot at a farm in Harmon, and the cops came, arrested him, even though he was protecting his crop. So at that time, we, at the university, in fact, I think he pled. I think he had to pay a fine, and he pled to probation. But even at that time, we had problems with ag theft. And when we were thinking about what to do at the university, we actually came up with the idea of maybe we should register these farmers as mandating to register as a bona fide or a farmer, whatever classification. But we said no, because the last thing that, and this is the reason why we said no, is a lot of the farmers that I talked to said, don't have law mandate me to do anything. I can do it myself, and we left it at that. And then when this bill came up, it was kind of like the same idea. I don't know if the same intent, actually the same intent, but I went back to what we thought about 15 years ago. the hesitation of local farmers to come up and follow this mandate. And I looked at a law in Hawaii, ag theft law, and I just found it yesterday, Senator, and I'd love to send it to you and your staff. But it's called an ownership and movement certificate. So this certificate is based out of the farm. The farmer has 2 copies. The farmer said someone from Payless comes and buys his produce. He has a copy of what he sold, his address, the name, his license, his government license, and he gives that same copy to the seller. So what happens is there's a paper trail without the added mandating of a farmer to join a list. And it's a lengthy bill, but I'll be more than happy to share with you, Senator, and maybe we could talk about how we can improve what you have right now.
Thank you, Jesse. Yes, please, any recommendations that anyone has testifying today for potential amendments to the bill or anything is open. That's what the public hearing is for, is to allow everyone to add any recommendations they have, if they have recommendations. So please submit that testimony to us and we can include it in our committee report. Submit, Jesse, that legislation and any other recommendation for amendments, or as you or Dr. Barber said, any other recommendations you may have for what you feel would strengthen or improve the bill or fix the bill or whatever. You're more than welcome to send those, and they'll be included in the committee report, and there'll be something for the committee to consider.
Thank you.
Jesse.
Thank you.
Mr. Roland Kitagwa, Extension Agent 3, Cooperative Extension and Outreach, University of Guam.
Thank you very much, Senator. First off, I'd just like to reiterate that the intention of the university is to take a look at this public law, and with looking at its intent and looking at the genuine intent, we thought it was really good. And our purpose here is not to tear anything down, but what we want to do is find a way to strengthen this bill, because we do get we do have the ear of the farmers, and they do come to us. And so, how can we help and service these farmers that are ultimately providing sustenance to you and I? A couple of things that have come about there are a lot of things that are just all over the table. What Dr. Bob said and what Jesse, we've thrown this back and forth at us, for the past couple of days. And what there is a number of different options. Should we register? Should we mandate registration? Should we make registration voluntary? These are all things to consider, all with positive and negative effects that come along with them. So one of the ideas that came up in discussions was, why should a farmer register? And like what Jesse was saying, some of them were like, we really don't want to have another hurdle to have to deal with. But if the committee and if this bill were to pass and it was to either require registration or make registration voluntary, another option that has floated is one that they do not register at the Department of Agriculture, but register with their village mayors. And the logic behind that is that the mayors have a good idea of who their farmers are. And as was discussed earlier, we also have these small operators or people who are just starting, these backyard farmers. And the mayors are more in tune with that demographic within their village. The mayors also like the idea that if they have a farmer registry within their village, if other businesses come to them, they might be able to link, because there is this movement and people want to support the businesses and the micro businesses within their villages. And I don't see why we couldn't work together. And all that needs to happen is that those mayors could then forward that listing to the Department of Agriculture. So once again, whether or not it's voluntary, whether it is whether it's mandated, that needs to be discussed. The second thing is there was the mention of pesticide certification and ensuring that the fruits and vegetables are going to be safe for consumption. The concern that I have here is that this is when it comes to pesticide use, that's under the purview of Guam EPA. And so we need to get Guam EPA at the table when it comes to this component. That is their wheelhouse. And currently there are steps to ramp up that training to ensure, and it's, once again, this is being driven by the farmers themselves. Bob, Jesse, and we get beat up every time we're on the street because the farmers want that training. And so we're working with Guam EPA to ensure that we can service the farmers and ensure safe, nutritious food to our public. And the one thing that we believe is that the intent of this bill is good, but there are a lot of things that still need to be worked out. So what we would also like to propose is that a work group be put together. We need to bring Guam EPA, we need to bring the University of Guam to the table, as well as the Farmers Co-op, your office center, and the Department of Agriculture. If anything, it'll strengthen this bill and be able for us to identify gaps and find ways to close those gaps. Ultimately, securing our food, our food source, and making sure that our food is safe and available, and hopefully even more locally produced. Thank you very much, Senator.
Thank you, Roland. And I'm glad that you brought up Guam EPA, which I think is one reason why we felt the need for a bona fide farmer registry. Otherwise, how can Guam EPA regulate backyard farmers that they don't know of? If they have a registry, they simply go to the bona fide registry and then go inspect all of their farms. But if it's just some guy whose name is not anywhere on any registry, it's a little more difficult for them, Guam EPA. But if there's a bona fide farmer registry, Department of Agriculture can then submit that registry to EPA. Then Guam EPA can go out and inspect all those farms and make sure that they're using the proper pesticides. That's some of the reasoning behind this measure. But I do agree with you that it would be, it behooves us to work with all of the parties involved, including University of Guam and Farmers Co-op. So I do intend to work with everyone to see how we can strengthen, improve, not just this bill, but agriculture overall in general on Guam. So thank you for that, Roland.
And if I might add, we might want to also bring public health into the discussion. And the reason why is in the past, when Guam EPA has tested for pesticide residue, there was a legal issue, or more importantly, a gap that was identified. And that is Guam EPA can regulate what is pesticide being applied onto the crops. But once it leaves the vine, they then do not have any jurisdiction. And where does public health jurisdiction start? When it reaches the shelf. So there is a gap, and we need to close that gap. And we need public health at the table for us to figure out how we can once again close that gap to ensure the safety of our fruits and vegetables. Thank you very much, Senator.
Thank you, Roland. I believe John Borja from the Department of Agriculture did want to add something in as it relates to something said by University of Guam. So I'm going to allow Mr. Borja. Mr. Borja, did you have something you wanted to clarify with regards to testimony from UOG?
Yes, Senator. I would like to just add on that we are doing a good rapport with the University of Guam. We work closely with them on several agricultural issues. And just to draw the fine line, I'm talking on behalf of the Department of Agriculture as a regulatory agency. And with that, I basically try to make everything in order for the purpose of accountability, like I said earlier in my testimony. So we'll work the issues out and see where we can meet halfway and make sure that we ensure that it's going to benefit the farming community overall. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, John. All right, next on the list to provide testimony is Mr. Benny Nicholas.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you, Senator, for bringing this bill for hearing. And I would like to also recognize the other senators that are present, especially Joanne Brown, if she's still present, because I know that she is very well versed now with the farmers issue, having the opportunity and the privilege to work with the Soil and Water Board, Southern and Northern Soil and Water Board for Guam, up at the University of Guam. And I also like to recognize my good people from the University of Guam, Bob Barber, Jesse, and Roland. I've worked with those good gentlemen for a long time. And I had appreciated their good services to the farmers, and especially to the Soil and Water Board when I was chairing the board. So I appreciated all the good help that they're doing. And I especially appreciated Bob Barber's comments today. He is speaking, I believe, in my opinion, for the best interest for the farmers of Guam. And Senator, I thank you for bringing this issue to the public and addressing some of the farmers' issue. As you know, I've been speaking with you, lobbying with you for over a year to address the Guam farmers issue. And I spoken with you on how we can improve and be better able, and you especially as a senator, to be able to pass legislation to be able for the farmers to be able to be more productive, more sustainable, food security. So I was addressing all these issues to you. The number one issue that I brought to you was the budget for the Department of Agriculture. It needs to have the appropriate, adequate budget that it needs to function properly, because for many, many years, that's a major problem. They are always getting a very, very insufficient budget that is needed to help the farmers of Guam. That's the one biggest issue. The other biggest issue, which is, the Department of Agriculture is supposed to be our right arm. And so I mentioned to you that one way to really help the farmers is we need to do legislation to create an agricultural board similar to the airport board, commercial board in that level or caliber. And the other thing is, which is also going to get into the technical assistance, which Bob Barber was mentioned. We used to have what is called technical assistance. We have scientists, we have people from the Department of Agriculture, people from the University of Guam, used to be called the Department of Commerce, were working. Now they were really working with the farmers. And I appreciate those three gentlemen from the universities, what they're saying. So my take on this legislation is that, right now, I'm seeing it as a detriment to the farmers as written. So I will be opposed to this bill because I do not want any legislation or policy that is going to not motivate the farmers to do more work on the field. What it is doing is just going to be creating more administrative problem for the farmers, So the real problem is, we started out with the real problem is the people stealing from the farmers. So now we are going to be requiring the farmers to do these things and are not going to help the farmers. Okay, it's just going to add more problems to them. So the real problem, again, is I call them resellers that are stealing from the farmers. So we need to zero into that. And address it right there on the flea market or wherever they're selling it. That they have to have those certificate. Where did they get this? Get it from Benny San Nicolas. Then come and check. Did you sell this to Joe? Yes, I did, or no. But the real issue that needs to be addressed here is how can we really help the farmers? How can we really protect the farmers, right? For those that do not know me, one of the things that we did to help the farmer was to form and create what is known now the Guam Farmers Cooperative to address marketing issue. So that is being done. The other thing that we did to also help the local farmers is what is called, I mentioned before, the Guam Resource Conservation and Development Council. And all these organizations were created by the Guam Soil Water Conservation District Boards because we are all farmers, or all farmers. We're all unified in seeing how we can help the farmers in one way or another. So please, Senator, Bob Barber's recommendation, I support that recommendation very, very much. And we need to see how we can be more helpful to the farmer and not give them more requirements. And again, the reason for the bona fide farmer that Bob touched on earlier was the main reason the bona fide farmer came about because of back after typhoons. We lobbied the legislature to appropriate money so that the farmers could have at least seed monies for their lost crops. So back then they were given something like a few $100s or so. And 500,000 was not enough, or because there's so many farmers that came in and claiming to be farmers. So they said, okay, you need to be a bona fide farmer to receive compensation for after the disaster. Then the other reason is for water rates. Those are incentives to help the farmers. But this one is not going to help the farmer the way it's written. So I am opposed to it with, the intent is good that the farmers should be bona fide. They should be registered as bona fide farmers. And I like to recommend that also that if I'm a bona fide farmer, I should not have to be required to re-register every year. Just like teachers, professors, they're teaching every year, but they're not required to register that they're a school teacher every year. I retired as a school teacher and I was not required to register as a school teacher every year. But now as a farmer, I have to register every year that I'm a bona fide farmer. What I would like to recommend in that the bona fide farmer issue is that once I'm certified as a bona fide farmer, I will continue to have that bona fide farmer identity until I say I retired as a farmer, or the agency prove to me or anybody that I'm no longer actively farming. So that will be my recommendation. And let's help the farmer be more productive and spend more time on the field. I'm fortunate I'm here to speak, like this, but this is taking time away from the field, but this is very important, and very few of us have this opportunity and privilege to sit before you and agencies to deal with this legislative issue. Is very important. I was also very fortunate to have had the opportunity to be a board member with the Southern Soil and Water Conservation District Board. I spent many, many years doing that with the intent and helping the farmers be able to be more productive, protecting the soil and water. It's a very, very good organization and very, very good people in there. So please, Senator, I would like for you to really spend more time with us and deliberating on this, and with Bart Barber, Jesse, John Bora. These are very good people that are in there. that are really, I believe in, that have the interest or the best interest for the farmers of Guam. So with that, Senator, that's all I will say for now. And thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. San Nicolas, for your testimony. And yes, I do look forward to working with you more as we continue to work on agricultural issues. Just for the record, I know you mentioned, you brought up one of your issues of concern is a board for the Department of Agriculture or a commission for the Department of Agriculture. My understanding is that currently exists in Guam law. If I'm not mistaken, that's already an existing law that requires it. So it's now just a matter of having that board filled by people. So I believe there is an existing law that requires it. I think it's just probably never been filled for a while. So I will be reaching out to the governor's office because I believe the positions are appointed by the governor. So I'll be reaching out to her and whoever else may be involved with the appointing positions to the board to ensure that the law is met.
Senator, I'm aware of that Agriculture Board of Commissioners, but in my opinion, that is just an advisory board. It's not a board. So that's why I'm saying earlier that it has to have the same caliber or the same authority as any other good boards like the airport, commercial board. They need to have that authority, not an advisory board to the director.
I see. Okay. Thank you, Mr. San Nicolas.
Thank you too.
Next on the list for testimony is Jessica Ngauta. I'm not sure if I see Jessica online. I don't believe, Jessica, if you're there, please chime in, but I don't think I see you in the gallery here. So I will move on now to Mr. Ernie Wustig, if you are there. I also do not see Mr. Ernie Wustig, but if you are there, please chime in. I don't see you in the gallery here. So I'll move on to the next person we have on the list, and that is Ursula Herrera. Hello, Ursula. I don't hear you right now. Could you make sure that your volume is turned up? Hello, Ursula? Hi, I'm still not hearing you right now. All right, Ursula, we'll go on to the next person while you figure out the issues you're having, the technical issues. Oh, there, okay.
Happy day. Sorry about that. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, happy days. This is Maasi, Senator, for introducing this bill and Madam Vice Speaker, and happy day to Zamdu, Mananasi Duas, 36 Guam Legislature. I would like to start by saying that I am an employee of Department of Agriculture, but I will be speaking as a private citizen. I am, for the record, my name is Ursula Herrera, and I am a traditional medicinal apprentice. I am also the owner of a farm-to-face brand company called Cham Glam Botanica. I harvest and I pick medicine and produce achoti around our jungles, around our island. Some areas that I do pick from are near farms, right? And I'm very conscious of the farming practices that they may employ and conscious of the downdrift or from possible runoff or pesticide use. So I'm always mindful of what I gather and where I gather it from. because I am afraid of illegal uses of pesticide and other farming practices that might taint the plants and the medicine that I use. We entrust our regulatory agencies to oversee ensuring that our farmers are compliant in their use of pesticides like this bill is proposing. We entrust our regulatory agencies to ensure that we have safe produce and that our farmers have knowledge of responsible pesticide use and thus contributing to our island's economy with their produce sales. We want to ensure that legitimate farming operations are registered so that we can entrust our island's health and environmental safeguards and practices are in place. This is going to make sure that not only our foods are safe, but our surrounding homes. The surrounding omelet is very safe and important to us. In our interactions and the farmers that are graciously invite me to pick on their land, I feel secure about their farming practices. I feel confident because I know that they are bona fide. In these interactions, I also hear so much about how they were stolen from and how distraught and how breaking it is. And the culprit is never caught. And this is their life as a farmer today. It's heartbreaking to hear that. This is their hard work and it's being resold for cheaper prices, right? By a person that didn't do the hard work involved in this growth. And we see in what we see in our markets daily, our farmers are losing money from these thefts, but they're also competing with unrealistic low prices created by it. I'm speaking in support of public Bill 63-36 LS. These new amendments are going to require bona fide farmers licenses in order to sell any produce that may greatly reduce our island's theft problem, since the thieves won't be able to obtain these licenses that are only for certified farmers. This bill will stop the thieves, but it also will stop vendors from purchasing stolen goods. And looking through these proposed amendments, this is very important to me because these are hardworking. They are working so hard to feed our community, and we have to do something to protect their livelihoods. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ursula. Just to clarify, are you providing a testimony as an employee of the Department of Agriculture?
As a private citizen.
Okay, thank you.
Yes,
next on the list is Chen Quan Ju, excuse me if I mispronounce your name, I apologize. Assistant Professor of Agricultural Economics at the Cooperative Extension and Outreach Division of the University of Guam, or program of the University of Guam.
Thank you, Senator. So this is Quan Chen from UOG. I'm the Assistant Professor of Agricultural Economics. So basically, I just second my colleagues, Dr. Bob Barber, Jesse Bamba, and Roland for their points. And also just for myself, I'm speaking for my minority group. So also try to just share for inclusive part. The island still, we still have some minority group for our farmers group. So I just say those bona fide farmer, bona fide certificate, also the pesticide training will be really helpful. And beyond the UOG, we try to help best, including the other groups as well. Yeah. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. And the other person I see on our sign-in sheet currently is Gina Campos, but I don't see her online right now, unless she did join us recently. I don't see her online. So instead, I'd like to ask, is anyone else here to testify on Bill 63?
I would like to.
Okay, Mr. Cepeda?
Hi, good morning. John Borja invited me to the Zoom meeting late
Sure.
afternoon yesterday.
Please give us your name for the record before you begin your testimony. Thank you.
Sure. My name is Marcus Cepeda, and I represent Bohemian Grove Garden. I'm an urban farmer in the heart of the city of Harmon, Dededo. I'm setting up a grove for people to come and relax, more like a garden, similar to different concepts in Southeast Asia. There's many. This is just a small area, but I think this could draw a lot of cultivators that are interested in sharing their ideas, similar to the Chefs Association. I would relate it to. I was also vice president of GHRA. We would meet and share ideas, share different systems and concepts. Well, anyways, that's a little bit about what I'm doing currently. My background is I'm a food and beverage professional, hospitality. Just got into the agriculture cultivation a little bit over a year ago. I've been doing the cultivation of tropical plants, ornamental plants, specialty crops. So several comments that I have about the bill, just going to be brief, is the security and the certification of the bill. Listening to testimonies and what also Mr. Borja explained to me, that's what I want to make a few comments. One is, does this cover the security? Does it cover for ornamental plant cultivators? Would be covered as somebody steals my crop. I have about 700 plants. It's taken me 3-4 months to cultivate from a clipping, from a seedling. Would I be protected under this bill? Because they are not crops, they're not edible crops. Second, the security along with certification. Being a food and beverage professional, we would have to abide by public health standards, ABC standards, which we have to follow certain regulations. For example, meat has to be USDA certified. With crops that are being sold, is there any type of certification that the bill would require, such as a farmer having a wash area, like staging areas, a drying area, refrigeration, proper storage containers to deliver to the customers? So I think that I would have questions about being a food and beverage professional. What am I getting? Is there a label that is going to be placed on the container or the transportation box that the products are being boxed in? On that label, what is it required for that label to have? Was it pesticides? What type of soil was it grown in? Just in case you may have something go wrong. Just like in the food and beverage business, when you serve a bad meal, let's say, for example, chicken, where we may have botulism, where it gets people sick, public health comes in, they investigate, they find the source of the problem, and they can kind of backtrack and see, what happened, how it happened. So that would be one of the comments I would have, several of the comments I would have. Security, I believe Jesse mentioned something about the farmer. He was protecting his assets. Again, in the food and beverage industry, we always have to protect our assets. Security is very important. Now, what would happen if, for example, that if you are making apprehending somebody that is breaking into your farm, your grove, and you apprehend them, and there is physical force? Just curious. I mean, I had several mopeds stolen from my guest house in Tumon, and the perpetrators came back to steal more, and I could have apprehended them, but I wasn't sure whether, if I did, because I'm a much bigger man than these two that were trying to steal my mopeds. If I were to hurt them, I didn't want to be in trouble. But it's kind of a gray area there. when I did call the police came later, and I asked them, they go, well, we don't want you apprehending anybody because you could be arrested. That didn't make any sense. So just wanted to make a comment about that. In addition to my testimony, just something real simple, real quick. I'm using off-grid systems. Like for example, I don't have utilities. I don't have municipal water. I bring in my own water. I capture rainwater. I water my plants. I think this would be something that perhaps the agriculture department would consider offering grants for, because we don't have utilities everywhere in Guam. And and bringing in utilities infrastructure is very expensive. I also do business development, and it takes time, takes a lot of money to do. So what if we come up, or the authorities, the professionals come up with a system where you capture water in reservoirs, and then you have a transportation system, whether it's trucks, and you transport it to different reservoirs where the farmers can use for water. And this is very common in Southeast Asia, in Thailand and China, places that I visit, and I've seen it for myself. And that way you're actually saving money than paying municipal water, which has a lot of additives, chlorine and other chemicals in it, where you're capturing water, natural rainwater, and storing it and then transporting it to other facilities, which perhaps there could be some grant money for setting up these type of systems. I've looked into them, and using solar power and other types of equipment that doesn't really cost a lot of money to have water available between 1,000, 2,000 gallons. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cepeda. I'd like to note something for the record. Roland Santos, who testified earlier, I did mention that he was from Farm to Table, Guam, but he would like to clarify that he was speaking as a private citizen and not necessarily on behalf of the organization. And then with that, if I could get one final clarification from Mr. Cepeda, who just completed his testimony. Just to be clear for the record, are you in support of the measure, or are you, what is your testimony on the measure?
Yeah, I am in support, definitely.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cepeda.
You're welcome.
All right, is anyone else here to testify on Bill 63? Looking around I don't have anyone else on my sign-in sheet, but I am looking around the gallery for if I see anyone else here. Please speak up if you're here to. Okay, I see a Chris Rosario. Are you here to testify on Bill 63?
Yes, I can testify, or at least put a little bit of some comments to it.
Sure.
So just on the record, my name is Christopher Rosario. Thank you for having me today. And I would like to testify in support in hopes that we could actually strengthen this bill. And so even as a beekeeper, or part of the Guam Beekeepers Association, we would like the support in the bill, so that we can again, in hopes that we can strengthen the bill moving forward. So, because we also want to be part of helping the farmers as well. Again, these are kind of all in this whole aspect of farming, especially just there's urban aquaculture, like was mentioned earlier, or urban farming, but there's also urban beekeeping. And we also want to be able to, again, be part of this. Actually, we would serve as a huge component again. And so yeah, that's kind of all the comments that I have for this bill.
Okay, thank you. So are you in favor of the measure?
Yes, in hopes that we could actually strengthen this bill.
Okay. Please provide if you have any specific comments or recommendations for how to strengthen it.
Okay.
If you could provide that to us, you still have opportunity to submit that in writing. If it's easier to put it together in writing,
Yes.
you'll still have opportunity to submit that to the committee in writing, any recommendations.
Yes, actually, I would like to do that in writing. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. I see a Mr. Dennis Larson. Are you also here to testify on Bill 60? Please take your device off of mute. There should be a microphone symbol, the left-hand portion somewhere of your screen.
How about now? Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Thank you. Go ahead and proceed, Mr. Larson, and please introduce yourself, and if you're representing any organization or if you're representing yourself as a private citizen, for the record.
My name is Dennis R. Larson. I'm the owner and operator of Raw 671 Honey Farms here in Barrigada. I'm actually standing in my farm. Give you a little bit of a view of some of the different beehives that we have here and what we got going on in Barrigada. I think Mr. Rosario pretty much covered. I'd like to, testify on behalf as a businessman, as a farmer. I actually have a bona fide farmer certificate, and I own and operate over 21 different beehives around the island. So very much in support of the measure. I think protecting the farmers is very important, but I think there also has to be some stipulations in this bill regarding beekeepers because of the way our product comes out, the fact that it doesn't spoil. There's different things. There's a lot of up and coming beekeepers on island, but there are also a lot of established beekeepers on island who already have the amount of hives that it requires to be an actual apiary. And then we're also, working in the industry. I sell my honey right alongside of Ernie Wustig on Route 16. He trades me honey for corn. Ernie doesn't have to label every single piece of corn that he sells. You see what I'm getting at?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's some ways that I think this thing can be tweaked to help the beekeepers, but also the Beekeepers Association. I'm also on the board of that organization with Mr. Rosario and some other fine people. And the mission is strong. The statement is strong. And I would hope that you would allow us some interjection of some different things that need to be tweaked on this particular bill to help the farmers. We're actually an up and coming part of the farming industry and here in Guam. And without these little characters right here, none of it's going to happen at all. No crops, nothing. So take care of your beekeepers. And that's it. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. I appreciate the testimony. And yes, again, if you and Mr. Rosario have specific things you'd like to recommend to the committee, you'll have time to submit that in writing. At the end of the hearing, I will mention how many days we allow for testimony to be submitted in writing after today's hearing.
Thank you for your good work. Thank you for your good work.
Absolutely.
And on all of the farming, very good. Thank you.
I appreciate it. And just also for the record, I'd like to note that I am working on some honey legislation that I think may address some of the issues you just sort of mentioned, but I will meet with you guys. It's a separate piece of legislation that I'd like to meet with you guys about at another time. But yes, I am working on some honey legislation.
Yeah, without these bees, we would have been crushed during this pandemic. My wife and I, our business was at zero. It was the bees that kept us going. So that's something to think about.
That's good to hear. That's good to know. Thank you, Mr. Larson. Now I see a Rod G. Are you here to testify on the measure? If you are, please turn on your camera and turn off your microphone. Mr. Rod G. If not, I will move on. Is anyone else here to testify on Bill 63? Please chime in if you're here to testify on Bill 63. Going once, going twice. Sold. All right. So we're going to move on now, and I'm going to allow members of my colleagues the opportunity to ask any questions they may have. And I will begin first. I'm just going to go down how I see everyone sort of lined up in my gallery view here. So I'll begin with Senator Tony. Sorry, let me allow my vice chair first. Forgive me, Vice Speaker Tina Rose Munoz-Barnes.
Mr. Chair, thank you for allowing me to be the co-sponsor with you on this bill 63-36. And I want to thank all the farmers and the university and all of you, my colleagues, for being here this morning, as I see that it's very important. And if I may, Mr. Chair, just based on a lot of the presentations, I have a couple of questions to ask, and maybe I'll ask it in a three-part. And then I'd like to give a comment to you, Mr. Chair, as you and I had the opportunity to visit Taiwan last term. So if I may, I think this first question I'd like to ask Department of Agriculture, are farmers determined by size and restrictions?
To be a bona fide farmer, there are no size restrictions. The size restriction or plant size requirements or number of plant requirements is for the purposes of the agricultural water rate program. But the requirements for a bona fide certificate do not mandate any size or production requirements.
So as you talk about that being there's no restrictions there, and you talk about that public law, maybe can public law 22-64 or 5 GCA section 5008.1 procurement law, can that be amended in separate from this law based on the presentation?
Yes. So Dr. Barber brought up the 22-64 for the the residency requirements, or the U.S. citizenship requirements, and I think that could be amended at the same time as us adding the section for a bona fide subsistence farmer. I mean, because we can tackle it at one time. And I do agree with Dr. Barber that the procurement section requires some updating and overhauling, and we'd be happy to do that with them in conjunction with the legislature. But I still think that we could do that separate from this bill. I think there's a misunderstanding that to be a bona fide farmer requires some lengthy reporting and all of that, but it's the application that you fill out when you want to become a farmer. It's one form. Well, it's a couple of pages, but it's just where you specify what you're growing. And if you're growing nothing, you can kind of specify that too. When I first started raising chickens, I filled out that application and I had no trees to put, no other crops. I wasn't seeking an agricultural water rate. So I didn't have to identify all of that. And the reporting that's required for the bona fide certificate is every 6 months, you report to the Department of Agriculture what you're doing, what your crops have been. That also helps in the purposes of theft. So if someone is saying that they grew 2,200 pounds of bananas and it's never been identified on their bona fide reporting that they were growing bananas, then how did you come into these bananas? And if you're not a bona fide farmer, then that's the same question, like how did you come into these bananas? But at the same time, as a regulatory agency, we wouldn't really have the authority to further that investigation. If someone isn't bona fide, we can't see them, we can't identify them. So then that's what allows businesses to operate under the radar, under the regulatory mandates of Department of Agriculture and EPA. And it's actually with EPA, we did speak with them about this and they are in support of it. But I'm not testifying to that on their behalf. But what today is a funeral of the person who actually conducts these regulatory inspections, Mr. Betwin Alacoa. And he regularly would go out with John. They conduct surprise inspections on farms, but EPA does that with us because they can't identify the farms otherwise.
Okay. So, I really appreciate that presentation, Mr. Chair, and maybe I can ask Department of Ag and other questions. Can farmers receive crop loss compensation if they're not registered as a bona fide farmer?
No, they cannot. They need to be registered as a bona fide farmer before the natural act occurs in order to receive crop compensation. And they also have to retain their financial records and receipts in order to validate their losses. But that would be the same requirement for USDA reporting.
So how can we verify that farmers are operating legally and in a healthy manner if they're not bona fide? And maybe I know that working closely with the oversight chair, one of the reasons why this bill was introduced, at least from my perspective, was because we wanted to make sure that we continue to hear the farmers, we continue to hear their issues and concerns, but wanted to make sure that if there was anything out there, especially as it relates to crops, right, that are lost, right, and if they're not registered. I mean, how do you do that verification process? I'm sorry, Ms. Needed to ask this question because that was one of the reasons why I felt compelled to work closely with you and be your co-sponsor on this measure, because I wanted to make sure that if there was an opportunity for us to move forward, and then also you and I know that when it comes to grant funding, that data is everything. And if we have an opportunity to work closely with the farmers to look at their crops, compile what is being sold, what is being grown, what is really being transacted, then there's opportunity for us to look at a bigger scale. And I must say that when you and I visited Taipei to look at the agriculture industry, that was one of the main things that you and I asked for. The farmers there are associated with what they call a co-op, and they were able to pull together their crops to meet the growing demand of not just the Taiwan market, but a bigger international market, and that the reporting and tracking of the agricultural crops were so sophisticated in Taiwan that they can track the quality and the farm where products came from to ensure things like organic practices. So I wanted to share with the farmers here that farmers can benefit from research to increase the yields and develop the highest quality produce possible. So I share this with you, Mr. Chair, and to everybody here, because it's really important that if we can compile this, we have seen great success in an island nation that we visited last term. And we said if Guam could emulate something close to this, and I know there was like 4 or 5 of us that had gone, that we could probably literally track and look for bigger opportunities, even have that kind of collaboration, because that's something that was missing. And Taiwan had shared with us that data was really, really important, and making sure that the listing of farmers so that they can tell what products they had, if they needed something, if they wanted to share something, and something that we can work with also on the bigger scale with our Micronesian brothers and sisters, or anyone in the Blue Continent that Mr. Chair, you and I are working for. So I know I'm long-winded there, but I think this is really, really important. And that's why I asked, based on what's already in public law that's existing, I asked Department of Agriculture to see if there was anything that we could do separate from what this bill is doing, and then literally have the farmers look at something, because I don't want to have an objection and know that the intent wasn't where it was going to go. And I know that UOG shares these concerns about this bill, and I'm wanting the farmers to see that bigger picture of where, at least where my perspective was, and how I thought that if we at least had a list, we didn't ask for payments, because I know BBMR brought that up in the fiscal note about, is there going to be a register? Is there going to be a fee? Is there going to be a recording? And then that can be all worked out, Mr. Chair. But I thought that this was really valid to make sure that if we move forward, or when we move forward, that we address everything, And this was part of the concern and the bigger picture of me being a co-sponsor with you on this. So thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Department of Ag, and for sharing your answers to me, but more importantly, to all the farmers out there, thank you for staying close. Our doors are always open, and I'm really glad that the chair has given me the opportunity to work closely with him as we see the need for all the farmers to be geared up to the level that they need to be, because the resources are needed, the money is needed, but in order for us to ascertain resources, we need data, and that's something I think we don't have automatically or in detail. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Vice Speaker. Chelsea, did you have something you wanted to add? I saw you raise your hand.
Yes, thank you, sir. I wanted to add that I do agree about incentives. We definitely want to incentivize the process. I do believe that we have several hundred farmers on island who are already registered bona fide. So this is not an impediment to those, especially the larger commercial ones who are operating. If anything, once we advertised the grant opportunity that we're offering through our agency, we had a run on people coming to register as bona fide farmers. The purpose of this bill, which I stated earlier in my testimony, is as a regulatory agency, we had people coming in complaining about being undercut by those who are not bona fide, undercut by those who are operating in a sort of underground market or underground farming opportunity. And also those who were concerned about knowing what people are putting onto their produce. And if they're not bona fide, we have no authority to go and inspect them. And this helps us operate in conjunction with US EPA or with Guam EPA to do that. But yes, incentives absolutely work, and we want to create like a bona fide certificate. I mean, well, like sticker that says, you know, this farmer they're bona fide, and then create that sort of branding and labeling, like the buy local, and so that it incentivizes farmers to want to participate if that's what's being recognized commercially. But again, this bill is for the purposes of us as a regulatory agency. It'll allow us to have more enforcement over those who are operating outside of what's allowable or safe for our community.
Thank you, Chelsea. Senator Tony Atta.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I probably just have one question for Director Muñoz. Good morning, Chelsea. How you doing?
Good morning, Senator Atta.
Yeah, you know, do you see Bill 63 applying as well to cannabis farmers?
Yes. I believe that's part of the cannabis laws, that cannabis farmers are required to register with the Department of Agriculture.
And then they'll also be coming or signing up as a bona fide farmer grower.
Yes, although their reporting requirements are a little bit stricter than the every 6 months.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that. And thank you, Mr. Chair. That's the only question I had.
Yes, I might add that the regulations for cannabis cultivation are a lot more strict than any other form of produce. There's regulations as to the pesticides and even the types of things they can, fertilizers they can use to grow it, etc. So yes, it's definitely going to be well regulated. Thank you, Senator Atta.
Thank you, sir.
Senator Titagui.
Just Masi, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity. And I'd like to thank you for continuing on with your endeavor on helping our farmers. They've been calling out for assistance from us for many years now. And I think the delay on bureaucracy is probably an issue. And I understand what the University of Guam is saying, but I just think that we need to do something now and not wait for another task force, another board meeting, or another, conference that needs to be named. These individuals, these farmers need help now and today. So Mr. Bamba, you mentioned earlier in your testimony that you'd spoken to farmers, and you kind of mentioned it was a while ago, a while back. Times have changed, quite substantially. There are more crimes being committed, not just for farmers, but all around, and an epidemic, a drug epidemic that are now moving more toward farmers these days. So how long ago was it that you've had a group of farmers get together to discuss this legislation?
I talked to, well, to give you some background, we just started talking about this legislation maybe a week and a half ago. But to give you some background, also, we just recently did a survey of about 12 farmers this year, me and Dr. Kwan. And we compared we also did a survey before the pandemic. And during the 2020 pandemic, we saw a spike of theft in ag products. And that's probably, it didn't shock us. But that was one of that was the top two concern. The second concern that the 12 farmers had addressed. The year before that, it was pretty much the same top three problems that we have in farming. One is ag labor, marketing, and also institutional knowledge, which would be like agencies being able to help farmers. But as far as theft goes, I talked to the first time I talked to about 4 farmers was about a week and a half ago, and it was directly for I didn't even read the bill. I just read the bill like a week ago. So they discussed their concerns with what they thought what was wrong with the bill and how they could make it better.
I appreciate that, Jesse, and some of the comments that you made earlier. I mean, I too believe that there's some parts in this legislation that could be added to, some amendments, like to include what Mr. Cepeda was talking about on plants and flowers. I know, Mr. Chair, you're looking at incorporating the bees as well, but maybe we can even make it stronger, and put the farmers that farm honey, for bees in this legislation, in the definition on that. I'd like to thank Mr. Nicholas Benny for being a bona fide farmer, for actually, being a part of this regulatory. Actually, it's been a bit of a nightmare, for agriculture, even EPA or public health, to be able to, monitor these farmers and to ensure that it's safe on the products they're using on their plants. And, it's important to monitor them. And it begins first with registering. And that's the main goal. So it's twofold here in being bona fide farmers. On the registration, on the safety and protection of the plants, as well as okay, that caught me off, lost my train of thought, but as well as the protection of the farmers' crops. So it's twofold. So I really appreciate it, Benny, that you are, and I hope it encourages all farmers to be bona fide farmers and register. So Chelsea, my question is on the registration to be a registered farmer. I know you noted that it's every 6 months where they check in, but is the registration fee a one-time assessment or is it an annual requirement?
Senator Taitui, thank you for the question. Before I forget, I wanted to thank you for the statements you made during the public hearing for for the session on Bill 62-36. I watched it, and I just wanted to thank you for the comments you made. It reminded me when I saw you right now.
Thank you.
But there's no fee attached to this registration.
Excellent.
There's no fee for the reporting. There's no fee at all to the farmer.
Excellent. That's very good to hear. I appreciate that too. And I was thinking of putting that in the bill, but since there's no fee, everything we can do to support them. So other than that, Mr. Chair, I think I really don't have any more questions. I truly support this legislation. It goes hand in hand with the first bill that was introduced, and I'm sure there's a third one following suit. And I think we need to do this right now. We can't sit around and have, like I said, conferences or board meetings. This is very simple. If you want to sell your produce, if you want to sell your product, whether it's plants, flowers, honey, bananas, whatever you want to sell, then like everybody who sells anything, they have to file their taxes and have to file for a business license. This simply allows this process to take place so that vendors who do sell your products will also, know that they're purchasing this from a bona fide farmer. And I think everybody in this community wants to see our farmers grow and continue that legacy of farming on this island. Also to Ursula, I thank you so much for you're one of a kind, and especially when you're looking at medicinal, herbs and plants for healing. I encourage you to keep moving forward, and please lift the next generation up, because the Serranos are almost gone from this island, and these plants are very, very important. So again, thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity, and thank you everybody here testifying.
Thank you, Senator Tideway. I would just like to note again for the record, let me go ahead and read into the record the definition of a bona fide farmer, just so it's clear what the current definition is. Bona fide farmer means a person who is registered with the Department of Agriculture and grows for commercial purposes fruits, vegetables, ornamental plants, livestock, aquacultural products, or similar products. So yes, we could probably add in perhaps honey and some other things as we see needed, but it definitely does currently covers ornamental plants, fruits, vegetables, livestock, and aquacultural products. Now the term similar products is a little bit gray. What is a similar product? You could argue it. So where needed, we can add in specific things if it's necessary to strengthen the definition. I'd like to allow for, let's see, who else is on? Senator Mary Torres, are you still there?
Yes, I am, Mr. Chair, sorry.
Hi.
I just wanted to, first of all, thank everyone for this very thorough discussion on the matter. I started out with many questions, many of which were addressed by the various participants today. But I wanted to note, though, that what impressed me a great deal is the testimony by the University of Guam, because with every legislation there is an effect on broader policy. And I think that the mention of Public Law 22-64 and Chapter 68 of Title V was a critical component of that residual part of what these types of policies have on the farmers. But I would like to ask Mr. Chair that when you do have your working meetings, that we also have the privilege of maybe joining in for the discussion, just to understand the breadth of this matter, because it's quite fascinating, and I think it's so practical and relevant. And the better we are at getting it right, the better we will be for our farmers. So I think that the discussion is great, and I mostly look forward to the further discussion with the University of Guam, with EPA, and with agriculture on this bill. But I don't have any specific questions, because I actually have a million questions. But thank you so much to everyone for your participation today.
Thank you, Senator Torres. Let me see. I'm just scanning in the gallery to see if any of my other colleagues are on. I believe that does it for the senators who have joined us this morning. So I will wrap this up with my questions now. I do have a question for Mr. Borja, if you are still there, Mr. John Borja.
Yes, I am, Senator.
Mr. John Borja, you do currently work with a lot of farmers, correct? You go out and I've been told by farmers that you do go out and talk to some of the farmers, especially the ones who are bona fide. Can you tell me, have you spoken to any of the farmers that you deal with about this bill and what their thoughts are on the bill? What kind of feedback have you received personally?
Yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I am. In fact, I'm a 24-hour liaison to the farmers. I speak with them after hours at different occasions, different events, and they always pull my ear to hear about their situation and how we can help them out. With this bill itself, I did speak to 14 farmers, and they were all in agreement regarding to have the commercial farmers to be registered as one of the farmers on Guam. Part of it because of the competitive arena that they're in, not knowing who's the other farmers supplying the markets and whatnot. But the main concern is the safety of the produce going to the markets, and that the larger scale farmers are outdoing the smaller scale farmers. So there's a lot of concerns. Now they're looking at other stuff to do, maybe go into other possibly farm ventures or partnership with others to make it a bigger farm impact or a footprint on their part of their business as farmers. But yes, Senator, I do have a list with the contact numbers, and I will forward that to your office, and you can confirm with them that I personally spoke with them and they relate their concerns regarding this bill in favor of the bill. So I'm there for the farmers, I'm there for them 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Yeah.
Please submit that list to the committee, and then we can contact them and ask them for their testimony to officially get testimony from them on the bill, and then we can add it, include it in the committee report, and include it in the record. Thank you, Mr. Borja.
You're welcome.
All right, this concludes our discussion on bill number 63-36. We will now recess for 5 minutes before we proceed with discussions on bill number 48-36. But first, please allow me to thank everyone for your participation, the Department of Agriculture, the members of the University of Guam Cooperative Extension Program, all the farmers who showed up to testify, and all the organizations who showed up to testify today, and just everyone who showed up to testify today. I really appreciate it. All of your feedback matters. All of your feedback helps us to craft a better bill and helps us. Ultimately, I think we all have the same goals here, and that is to improve the agricultural industry on Guam. So thank you, everyone, for your participation today. With that, we will recess for 5 minutes, and then we will resume with discussions on bill number 48-36. Thank you. Day and good morning. This virtual public hearing will now reconvene for the committee to hear and accept testimony on Bill 48-36 COR, an act to amend subsection 58110D of Chapter 58, Title 12, Guam Code Annotated, relative to the expansion of the public investments option for qualifying certificate holders to include municipal programs and projects, introduced by Senator V. Anthony Tony Atta. I will now give the floor to Senator Atta to present his sponsor statement on the bill. But Senator Atta, before, if I could recognize all the senators in attendance, Vice Speaker Tina Rose Munoz-Barnes, yourself, Senator Tony Atta, Senator Tello Taitigui, Senator Mary Torres, thank you for your participation this morning. Senator Atta, you are recognized for your opening statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, this bill just allows for the inclusion of mayoral offices and municipal planning council projects to be included for consideration for funding by the qualifying certificate holders' community benefit requirements. Current law requires that the QC recipient support community development programs such as public improvement projects. And this bill, again, will just simply expand that list of those projects to include the village mayors and municipal planning council. I look forward to hearing any testimony on this bill and look forward to your work on it, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Atta. With that, we'll go ahead and begin with testimony from Melanie Mendiola, the administrator of the Guam Economic Development Authority.
Good day and good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Mel Mendiola, and I'm with the Guam Economic Development Authority. Hafaday, Senator Ridgell, members of the Committee on Economic Development, Agriculture, Power, and Energy Utilities, and the Arts, and thank you for allowing the Guam Economic Development Authority to present testimony on Bill 48-36. Although GIDA understands the intent of the bill, there are several points that we'd like to bring to the committee's attention as the legislature discusses the bill. Now, since it looks like there's not that many people set to testify after me, I'm certainly welcome to, if you want to have more of a discussion and Q&A, I'll absolutely make myself available for that. So Bill 4836 aims at amending Section 58110D of the QC law regarding public investments. The current law states that the GIDA Board of Directors can condition the receipt of QC benefits on the beneficiaries investing in or creating public improvements separate from its proposed activities. So what this basically means is that GIDA has the ability to require a QC beneficiary to make contributions to programs and places that will benefit the people of Guam. And they do this through our QC contract. So in 2019, GIDA launched the Qualifying Certificate Community Contribution Grant Program. And the goal of this program was to be, the launching of this program came at the urging of the Office of the Public Auditor to be more transparent and responsible with funds received by QC beneficiaries and to more effectively deploy these funds to a broad spectrum of the community. So prior to the QC-CC grant program coming into effect, the way that it worked was that a nonprofit, government agency, et cetera, would approach GIDA's board. GIDA's board would then vote on it. There was no real discipline process. It happened throughout the year. And so there was not a whole lot of clarity as far as how organizations, how agencies, including the Mayor's Council of Guam, could have access to this money. So we launched the QC grant program in order to address all of these concerns. We offer it multiple times of the fiscal year, and each series has a specific focus and funding priority. So eligibility remains open, but our funding priorities shift. So for example, this last program that was launched in was launched in February, awarded in March, is for economic development, including jobs and including the creation of jobs, retraining of individuals, and the creation of and the strengthening of our small businesses, economic development focus. So far, GIDA has provided funding for 3 series of grant programs. And we're actually, our board did authorize a 4th series, and we'll be announcing that on April 5th, which is next Monday, at our award ceremony for the last series. Bill 48 seeks to insert specific language in the QC law regarding municipal projects sponsored by village mayors. It's important to note that municipal projects have actually always been eligible to receive assistance from the QC contributions. And this extends to the recently established QCCC grant program, as long as the project meets eligibility criteria. The eligibility criteria is that each series needs to focus on one of the following or more of the following priority areas: healthcare, public safety, higher education, cultural preservation, tourist attractions and/or projects, sports tourism, economic development with a priority on the promotion of industry and small business. So to date, we've awarded over $900,000 through the QCCC grant program, which was again established in 2019. And this does include a grant award of $30,000 to benefit a mayor community assistance program to assist in the establishment of a pilot project to facilitate the automation of certain administrative processes, such as verification of residents. Based on feedback from village mayors, GITA has made it a point to include mayor's offices and other appropriate entities as eligible applicants in future QCCC grant funding series. So to kind of give a little clarity to how I think we got here. When we launched the program, government agencies and nonprofits were eligible. And then on our second series, which was aimed at nonprofits and COVID response, we said only nonprofits would be eligible, government agencies would not be eligible. And the reason for that was because we believed that many agencies became the recipient of CARES Act funds. So we said we shouldn't have these government agencies competing with nonprofits for this small pot of money. So the Mayor's Council, unfortunately, they got caught in the middle. They were the unfortunate, this small technicality. We said only nonprofits are going to be eligible, but that then cut out the Mayor's Council and the mayor's offices. So then we corrected it with the next cycle, and mayor's council became eligible again. And in our last series, I believe we had 2 that applied for QC grants. Because of this, we don't believe there's a discernible need to insert specific language regarding municipal projects in the QC law. We think they're covered already pretty adequately. And as GITA continues to roll out additional grant series, we look forward to informing and engaging with village mayors to apply for future QC grants when launched. Thank you again for allowing me to present testimony. And if you have any questions or require additional information, please feel free to contact me. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Melanie, for your testimony. Is anyone else here to testify on the bill? If not, I'd like to open it up to my colleagues to ask questions. Senator Titagui.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it. I know that your vice chair, Vice Speaker wanted to usually goes next, but I have to go to another meeting, and I just wanted to, stand in support of this legislation. I think it doesn't hurt to incorporate this, regardless of whatever programs that GITA implements. I think they're doing a great job, making sure that there's fairness throughout, the community and providing these things. But, I've also found that certain things that GITA has also not been able to follow through is on especially task force. You're getting a letter from me today, Melanie, sorry, that's coming through. So I think that's important to put it in the legislation to incorporate these things that are important to the community. And then definitely the mayors, the village mayors and the municipal councils are very instrumental to the community. And I think this would be very helpful, to ensure it does, and to, to codify it, So I stand in full support, and I thank you, Melody, for being here today. Hope you're feeling well as a new mommy to be. So other than that, thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to testify in favor of this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Titagui. Vice Speaker.
Mr. Chair, thank you for the opportunity to let me speak on this as your Vice Chair, I understand the Gita's perspective is saying the program is already there. The mayors, based on what is existing today, Melanie, do they have continued updates or PSAs or anything as it relates to the programs you have and what can and cannot be utilized through them or through their NPOs?
Yes, thank you for that question, Vice Speaker. So we're really, we're going on our 4th series of the Community Contribution Grant Program. With every series, we do issue a press release and try to do we try to do a good job as far as getting the word out there. The last grant, their last grant series, we included a grant training program as well to give people guidance as far as how to fill out the application. So we do believe that there's adequate notice made to the prospective applicants, and that they are aware that they can apply. As I had mentioned earlier, that was I remember in Series 2, there was a situation. Like I said, we were saying let's focus our efforts on nonprofits, because we were under the impression that most government of Guam agencies. So leading up to 2019. If you go through the list of QC grant recipients, you'll see that a lot of the grant recipients included GPD, GFD, Superior Court of Guam, GMH, Public Health, and that's not a bad thing. It's just that with a limited amount of funding for that period of time, we said, with all the CARES Act money coming in through to Gov Guam, let's just focus this particular series on nonprofits. Unfortunately, what we learned was that we left out mayors because mayors were neither recipients of CARES Act, nor were they eligible for our grant program. So then we corrected that so that we could make sure that they were eligible going forward.
Yeah. So I think, Mr. Chair, it's really important to realize that sometimes, that statement that our wise speaker who's left us, Speaker Ben, said, sometimes you don't need to legislate common sense, but if you shouldn't have to legislate common sense, but because it's not directly stated or what can or cannot be done, then that's why legislation is made. If it doesn't hurt, BBMR talks about it, this being administrative in nature and there's no fiscal impact at this time. I do know that Melanie, I want to ask you, there is a bill that has been introduced and has been heard, and it's Bill 42-36. And if for some odd reason that bill gets passed or not, I have to bring it up because if that gets passed and signed, then would that negate this whole program and the intention of Bill 48?
Yes, that's correct. That's a very good point that you bring up, Vice Speaker, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to comment on it. That's absolutely germane to this bill. If Bill 42 gets passed, then our QC grant program will no longer be funded. And if our QC grant program is no longer funded, it doesn't matter who the applicants are. It doesn't matter if they're the Guam Memorial Hospital or our Mayor's Council or our nonprofits. None of them will be funded through the QC grant program.
Right. But so everything that was implemented in the initiation of the intent and mandate of the QC will be negated.
That's correct. And if I may have the opportunity just to share, just to kind of illustrate this for the body, GITA receives approximately $1 million from the Guam Regional GRMC QC. So prior to 2019, what was going on was the GITA board would entertain one-off requests as they came to our office, and these requests may have been routed via Adelup, they may have been routed via someone in the legislature or just from the general public. The GITA board would then carve out time in its agenda to entertain each of these individual requests. And then the OPA weighed in and said, this is not an efficient this is not a transparent way to do this because you're not making it available to the public at large. And so that's something that we wanted to solve in 2019, hence the creation of this program. The QC grant program is not funded by GITA operational funds. It's funded by QC grants. I mean, it's called community contribution. We believe that it should go to the community. So in the past, the GITA board has utilized 80% of the QC community contributions for economic development purposes. And then when we came in, we said, no, we got to have a more disciplined approach. So we dialed it back and back and back and back and back. And now we're trying to aim towards 25 to 30% for our economic development use here at GITA, which means that out of $1 million, 250 to 300,000 would stay at GITA for economic development, and the other 700,000 would then get pushed out through these grant programs. And so the grant programs, it's been very effective. We've awarded something like 56 nonprofits and government agencies. We've done a number of really great things, and you're right. You know, it doesn't hurt. I don't think it hurts. I mean, to add the language, because we support our mayor's offices. You know, I'm from the village of Manila. I 100% support our mayors there and everywhere else on Guam. It doesn't hurt, but it's actually, at this point in time, they're already included in our program. So it's not something we need to necessarily legislate, in our opinion.
But you're not opposed to it?
Not opposed.
So I
it doesn't change my job. It doesn't change our job at GITA. We will still push out money to the community as long as there's money to push out.
I really appreciate that, Director Mendiola. I want to say, Mr. Chair, as I see the good mayor from Sinahanya on, I want to say that I support the mayors and their efforts. And if we need to restate something just for clarity's sake, sometimes it's not a bad. Yeah, it's just having to do the cross-reference, more difficult than not. But taking the program a step forward and putting it into statute may be better than not putting it in, the same way we did, Mr. Chair, with the Public Policy Institute. So I don't have a problem there. I think it's important that the mandate of what was mentioned by Director Mendiola stay firm in its intent and its passage through the board of why this program exists and what it's going to do. The intent was to go back, the resources to go back into the community and not just be designated into just one program and not the plethora of anything that may come in, whether it be the mayors, whether it be the NPOs and all that, because there are a lot of NPOs that do wait for this program. And I think being inclusive and just making sure clarity is there might be better than not. So if you're not opposed to it, I think it would be something that we should consider, Mr. Chair. And I hope the mayors can chime in, because this would benefit them, even if it sounds redundant or monotonous. I think the process of including it into this area, I appreciate the sponsor's intent. So thank you, Mr. Chair, for giving me the opportunity to speak, ask questions, but more importantly, to include the efforts of the mayor who's on with us this morning.
Thank you, Vice Speaker. And yes, I do see Mayor Robert Hoffman. Mayor Sinahanya has been able to join us. Thank you. I did see you log on earlier. I apologize. The prior hearing took very long. There were a lot of people to testify on the previous bill. So thank you for logging back on and joining us again, Mayor Hoffman. Please, if you have testimony, please provide us with your testimony at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator. I did submit it in and actually take it right now. And I appreciate everything that GITA's done. And I want to thank the leadership of Mel Mendiola on this specifically because, you know, they're finally including that. I've been in office for almost 16 years and it was always, can we? And we never really had it as a clear picture. And I think, you know, I support it in the way that it's going to remind the GITA board that community contributions community means the biggest impact is going to be in the village. You know, a lot of the things that were started in the communities that are very popular are because the businesses have a Manila market or an agate market or, you know, this festival or that festival. So they become tourist attractions in itself. And some of those areas just need a little bit of funding and a little bit of love. And unfortunately, some villages don't qualify for grants like community development block grant, like, because they reach certain thresholds. So it's nice to see that, maybe we can kind of massage this and remind the GITA board that, hey, there's some villages out there that do need that helping hand and that investment, because, a dollar with the mayor will go a lot for it's always been. And so, that's kind of my view on it. That's in my testimony. So I really appreciate that they actually did start including the mayor's council. But I want to publicly thank Senator Tony Yada. And I was surprised when I saw it, because I said, like, wow, we didn't get any co-sponsors. Wow. I was like, this is a good thing. So if we can really push that to get co-sponsors on it and get the body support, like you said, if it's needed to put it in writing, we might as well put it in writing, just so we can remind the people that that's why, because whenever you do QCs, you take money out of the tax coffers that would normally go to projects that we could request you, the legislature, for. And so, we're just looking for other avenues. So yesterday, when you heard, there was one about GVB and Mayor's Council asking for money for their festivals and their fairs. It's great, because then it standardizes it in that way. And, we don't support the fact that there's legislation to try to take away the QCs. We think that it does good, and we do work with the nonprofits, but we're just asking for that special little line that just says, hey, we're here and don't forget us, because, we don't fall really under the executive branch or the legislative or judicial. We're kind of like the fourth branch of general government operations. And so even when the budgets are submitted, we always wonder, like, where's the mayor's councils in this? And we're always this last, few pages after everything that's happened. So I appreciate any effort to do this. And so I want to thank you, Chairman Ridgell, for hearing this. And you live in Talafofo. We've talked many times about things in our community. So this is kind of, this just kind of gives us an opportunity and a door. If they don't apply, they don't apply. But at least tell the mayors, hey, this is what's coming up, and you may find a way to do economic development or healthcare or, public safety. But we do all these things. We have neighborhood watch programs. We do have after school programs. We have summer programs. We have sports programs. I mean, we literally do everything that's on that list, I think would qualify for, but it's just reminding the GITA board in perpetuity that mayors at the village level, we should be able to apply.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Hoffman, for your testimony. Senator Torres, do you have anything you'd like to add at this time, or any questions? I understand you are in transit, but I'd like to offer you the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to ask Mel, in listening to the discussion, would having this in statute, would this then bind GITA in some ways and take away from your fluidity, your ability to design programs as GITA deems necessary for economic development? I'm just wondering about when we put things in statute and it then causes policy that works together. Does it matter? Because I'm seeing different ways that this can play out.
Right. Thank you very much for that question, Senator. I think that insofar as the Mayor's Council becomes an eligible entity within the priority areas of healthcare, public safety, higher education, cultural conservation, sports, tourism, and economic development. So currently the eligible entities remain government of, I think the distinction that the mayor's asking for is government of Guam agencies, nonprofits, and the mayor's government of Guam agencies and the mayor's council, perhaps a distinction in that way. And nonprofits are the eligible entities, but that the priority areas of the projects must still fall under healthcare, public safety, higher education, cultural preservation, et cetera. And then that way, I believe that Senator will prevent monies being interpreted as GITA should be paying the operations of the mayor's office of Sinanya. Instead, it will be the mayor of Sinanya is putting up a cultural, she's putting up a stage and for cultural entertainment, and he'd like to apply for funding for this stage. That would then be a cultural preservation project falling under our priority area. but the applicant is the Mayor's Council of Guam. So thank you for making that distinction. That's exactly, I think, the distinction that needs to be made in this legislation.
Senator Torres, if you could, you are on mute.
I just want to say thank you. I don't have any further questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Torres. I personally don't have any questions. I appreciate the testimony from both Melanie and Mayor Hoffman. I do think sometimes, yeah, you may think that it's not needed to spell out certain things, but sometimes it is necessary to spell things out. I think you've done a great job, Ms. Mineola at GITA, of making sure that you afford this to the mayors and the current board. But boards change, administrators change, administrations change, and so sometimes codifying something ensures that the next administration or later on down the line that people are aware that that's a thing that's allowed and sort of it stands out, and that way people can refer to the law and say, hey, the law says you got to include the mayors in this. So that's the only comment I have, and I'd like to allow Senator Ada the opportunity now to close on his bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To GITA Administrator Mel Mendiola, thank you so much for your testimony. You shed a lot of light as to what programs you do have available there. And you guys have been doing a wonderful job up there. My hat's off to you and your staff. Thank you for all the hard work, especially during this past year. Getting out a lot of these fundings to the small businesses, to individuals. Thank you for all that you have done. Truly, you guys are a blessing in disguise for many individuals. Mayor Hoffman, thank you for your testimony. I really appreciate it. Thank you for bringing this issue up to me and to my colleagues here. I hope that we'll be able to move this bill forward, Mr. Chairman, so we can get this into our next session. And I'm glad that the administrator of GITA has also said that it doesn't hamper anything. It just says that it'll be codified, and she doesn't have a problem with it. And I would like to ask that my colleagues on this here be added as co-sponsors. As I would like to add Mayor Hoffman as a co-sponsor as well, but he's in a different elected office, so we'll keep him over there. But I would like to add yourself, Senator Taitigui, Vice Speaker, and Senator Torres as co-sponsors.
Okay, sounds good. All right, Senator Ada, my committee, of course, we will do our due diligence in finishing the committee report on this measure as quickly as we can. Thank you. That will conclude this portion of this morning's public hearing. The committee will continue to accept written statements on today's hearing within 10 business days from today. That's both on the bill that we heard earlier this morning, as well as the bill we just heard now. Written testimony may be mailed to my office at 238 Archbishop Flores Street, Suite 906 at the DNA building in Hagåtña. You may also send your statements to us at Ridgell at guamlegislature.org. That's Clynt, CLYNT, RIDGELL at Guam, GUAM, legislature, LEGISLATURE.org. Or you can send it by fax to 475-4768. Thank you all for your participation this morning. This virtual public hearing is recessed until 2 o'clock this afternoon, when we will resume to discuss resolution number 46-36 LS. It is now 11:34 a.m. Thank you, everyone, for your participation.
Thank you.